Oh, this is really good. Sorry, this is your back to school night.
No, that's
Sickness, yes, it happens.
all right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and call us to order and invite everyone to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the agenda with one slight modification. I'm just going to make a note that under old business where it says approval of superintendent's evaluation, that's to be discussed in executive session and then they'll come out of executive session to take any action. So with that minor modification, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Also moved.
Thank you, Meg. Is there a second? Thanks, Sarah. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Approval of consent agenda. This evening it includes the approval of the August 6, 2024 Board of Education regular meeting minutes, accepting a donation from Jessica Durant to PHS Girls Soccer Team in the amount of $3,411.65, and approval of an out-of-state field trip for the Portland High School Band to Boise on September 18th. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Meg. Is there a second? Seconded by Tim. Thanks, Tim. Any further discussion?
I was just curious to know where the donation is. Who is Jessica Durant? That's a wonderful donation.
So the challenge there was the girls soccer team had a fundraiser. I'm not entirely sure I know exactly what the fundraiser is. I think maybe a car wash, you know, the car wash. Yeah, unfortunately they didn't fill out the appropriate forms necessary to get the fundraiser approved. So they had an unapproved fundraiser, which they raised this amount of money. Now they'd like to donate that unapproved fundraiser money as a donation. So we're doing a little workaround here. It was a paperwork snafu.
Good question.
Congratulations to them raising.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done for a car wash. That's
Big line
impressive.
from,
And thank you for that clarification. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Audience of citizens. Do we have anyone with us in person or online who wishes to address the board at this point? No. All right. And we'll keep moving. Up next we have our Portland Public Schools Spotlight, and we are lucky to have 3 exciting items on the agenda this evening. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Britton to share with us about the Educator of the Year and the Para-Educator of the Year.
So I'm very excited to introduce 2 remarkable people to you. Before I do that, I want to give a little background. So we haven't had a Teacher of the Year or a Paraprofessional of the Year for a very long time. Teacher of the Year we started last year, but we haven't had a Paraprofessional of the Year. Now you have to remember, have we ever? Is this our
No, we're starting something new and it's really exciting.
really exciting, right? So this last year, we engaged the paraprofessionals in a discussion about how we can recognize excellence in our district and decided to do a Paraprofessional of the Year program. We put out the nominations last year, and the individual I'm going to introduce to you certainly had the second most, which was quite a few nominations, but she didn't have the top one. The person who got the top number of nominations from the community, teachers, other paraprofessionals, parents in the community, was Mandy Peck. Right. So Mandy Peck was a paraprofessional retired at the end of last year. If you remember back to June, I introduced her to you as one of our retirees. And in order to be the Paraprofessional of the Year, you have to be a paraprofessional for the year. So we were, of course, disappointed that we couldn't have Mandy as Paraprofessional of the Year. Clearly, she was meritorious of that recognition. So we talked to her, and I have to give Eric credit. He came up with this idea that we decided to name the award the Mandy Peck Paraprofessional of the Year Award. So that was a brilliant idea, and Eric, thank you for thinking of a way that we could recognize Mandy. So at our convocation, I introduced Mandy, and Mandy helped me introduce the first recipient of the Mandy Pack Paraprofessional of the Year Award, and then every year going forward from now, we will have a new Mandy Pack Paraprofessional of the Year Award. So the first recipient of the Mandy Pack Paraprofessional of the Year Award is Denise Lord Gruber, and this is Denise. So I'm going to let Denise say a few things to you, but I got to hear her remarks at our convocation, and Denise is a wonderful person. She has lived the American dream, and maybe she'll tell you a little bit about her experience. But Denise applied to Portland in May of 1993 after immigrating here from Panama. In Panama, Denise studied at the University of Panama, and in June 1993, Joe Castagnola hired Denise as a paraprofessional at Valley View, and she has been there ever since. So many people recognized her when they nominated her as an outstanding individual, so student-centered, caring, warm, does such a great job for us every day at paraprofessional, and I can think of no person more deserving than Denise of this award. Steve, do you want to say a few words?
I'm very grateful to be here and thankful, like Dr. Breton just said, that I was born, raised in Panama, came here in 1991, moved here with my dad. He was a military 82nd Airborne, so that's how I ended up coming here to the United States. And I started working as a volunteer at Gildersleeve. I worked in the library. And after that, they said, oh, would you come to Valley View? I started volunteering. So I started volunteering in 1992, and then that's where I was hired in 1993, working at the library. I work in kindergarten class and first grade class. One of them was Mrs. McCormick's class back in the days, and Mrs. Cahilla's class, which she was the kindergarten teacher. And then when I started there, I started working with a student in Mrs. Bunker's class. And from there on, loved every minute of it until this day. Love working with kids. I love teaching them. I love the passion that I have for them. They see it. They respond to me. I started as a one-on-one paraprofessional, which gives me a really background. I have a lot of DTI, PECs, a lot of things that I work with the kids. And I love every moment of it working with these children. And one of the things that I told at our meeting, that the first thing that I do is have a positive attitude, number one. Because kids sense when you have that not happy attitude, so you have to keep that positive attitude. That's what I like to do, and embrace them. The second thing that I like to do is connect with the children, like work with them, connect, have the connection. You like this? Oh, I like that too. Let's work together. Let's play games. So those are the things that I do with the kids. And the third thing that I do with the kids is I tell them, enjoy life. Even the simplest thing that we can do, those are the things that make you a better person. So those are the things that I try to do in my daily things that I work at school or wherever I go. I try to have that mindset, clear mind, and be positive. Try not to get mad, try not to get angry, because it really doesn't take you anywhere. It really doesn't help anywhere, you know. If you do something wrong, correct your mistakes. And that's what I tell the kids. And I love every moment of when I work with kids. I like working as a one-on-one. I like working in a group of kids. And when they don't know something, I teach them. And that's how they learn. Because you have someone that cares about them, and they know that they're going to be learning because you're teaching them, and they want to learn, and they want to be a better person. And they say to you, oh, I didn't know how to do that. I said, now you know how to do it. I said, next time you can go home and tell mom that you know how to do it. So that's how I connect with the kids. And I thank you for this award, and I'm very proud to be part of this school, and I'm very proud of working. I worked in every building. Like I told Dr. Burton, I worked in high school, Brownstone, Gildersleeve, and Valley View. Wherever they put me, that's where I went and I worked. And enjoyed it. So. Okay.
I'm so excited to introduce Jenna as our Teacher of the Year. So, back in 2007, a young woman named Jenna Ferrara applied to Portland after completing student teaching in Glastonbury. At the time, she had attended UConn, where she earned her Master's of Education with a focus in curriculum instruction and bachelor's degree with majors in psychology and education. And I was most impressed with the fact that she had a 3.94 undergraduate GPA. So at UConn, that's a pretty good feat, I bet. That's no problem. Fun facts about Jenna: before becoming a teacher, she was a competitive gymnast, a gymnastics teacher, and I found this out, which I thought was really neat. She managed UConn's basketball team during the time when they made it to a national championship. So thank you for getting this.
I just counted 3 for a second. More
In the 2007-2008 school year, Sally Doyen hired Jenna as a second grade teacher, and she's been with us ever since. I got to know Jenna as our team coordinator my first couple of years when I was in Eric's position. She's done an amazing job with all of our new teachers, bringing them into the profession. And I'll tell the story, Jenna, you might reference it. I remember it was last summer, not this past summer, the summer before, when we had made a decision as a board to add another kindergarten position. But for budget reasons, we didn't add the FTE. We decided to transfer somebody internally. And we had the ability to move one of our second grade teachers to kindergarten. And Jenna was the person we identified. So I called Jenna, and she was literally on her way into Hershey Park, Pennsylvania with her family. I said, "Oh, Jenna, I wish you hadn't answered the phone." I said, "I got to talk to you. Can I call you later?" And I think she had said to me at the time, "You have to tell me now, Charles. I'll be thinking about it the whole day while I'm on all over the rides. You have to tell me." So I said, "Jenna, we're going to move you to kindergarten." And Jenna loves Gildersleeve and loved her second grade team. And I've got to say, she was upset about it at first, right? And terrified and honest about it. But is such a professional and such a good person. And while she was grieving the loss of her second grade team in that position that she loved, she saw this as an opportunity and went down to kindergarten and knocked it out of the park. Loved it. Settled right in with that team, did such an amazing job with them. It was members of her team that nominated her. And up to the point this year, if you'll remember, we were talking about whether we needed that additional kindergarten section. Jenna was the first one on the phone with me going, "I'm watching that enrollment closely. I intend to stay here, and if you're moving anybody, it better not be me, Charles." But that's what happens when you have the right mindset and you throw yourself into something, and our kindergarten students are so lucky to have her. And I know she loves kindergarten now, and Valerie was just blessed. So, what did you say a few words?
So I didn't know there was a talk, so I'm not quite prepared. But yes, as Charles said, I have loved teaching in Portland. This is my 18th year. 16 of those were in second grade and had some of the students in this classroom, in this room right now. And I love my students. I send them emails every year at the beginning of the year and for the holidays, just wishing them well. I had a mom stop me in the grocery store just this past Sunday. She's like, "Are you Mrs. Ford?" I'm like, "Yeah." "We didn't get your email this year." She's like, "I am Morgan Sartor's mom, and she's 23, and she's like, she's graduated, but we always look forward to your email." And I was like, "No, I sent it." And then I realized, because you had let parents know about me getting Teacher of the Year, I had heard from parents at the beginning of the year saying congratulations and stuff, and sent so many emails that in my head, I'm like, I must have sent my beginning of school email, but I didn't, so I sent it this morning. But I am here for the kids. Being moved to kindergarten definitely was terrifying. I've always said that even though I'm certified K through 6, kindergarten and 6th grade terrified me. And so I felt like I wanted to make sure that I started kids with a solid love of learning. And I was like, and can I do that? Because I'm not a singer, I'm not really good at art, I'm not very creative. Like, how am I going to make kindergarten fun? Because in my head, I'm picturing Lori DeMauro and Corinne Scribano and Maureen Garcia and these people who have just been doing this for years and years. And I was like, I'm not going to measure up.
So instead of, crying about it, the next day I started moving my classrooms and I called up the ladies, because I remember working at them from Valley View, and I'm like, okay, teach me everything. So I was in classrooms all summer long, just looking at their setups, getting pointers, getting tips, and literally spent every free moment I had last year during my preps walking around being like, what's that? Can I have it? Thank you. What's that? Can I have it? Thank you. And then I bring the same paper back and like, what do I do with this again? And like getting their feedbacks and all of that. So in my address to the colleague, all of our colleagues, I said the most important things I've learned in teaching, just learn from everybody, including amazing paraprofessionals, your colleagues, everybody's so knowledgeable. So take everything you can, learn from everyone, be a lifelong learner. I'm 18 years in, but I know I still have a ways to go, so I always am looking to making myself better. And most importantly, it's all about the kids. And even though you've had hard conversations about budgets and the student needs and how much more each kid needs to be successful right now, that's important, and that's what my focus is on. I don't want any child that walks in my classroom to ever feel lesser than or not as good as somebody else just because they need a para, or they need breaks, or they need easier work, or they need harder work. I want to make sure everybody feels loved and appreciated for their differences. So that's what I keep my focus on, and thank you for the summer.
And I look forward to joining them. We go to the Bush now every year. I'm looking forward to that, and that's where they'll announce the state teacher of the year. Congratulations.
I tried.
Congratulations, Lisa and Jennifer. Thank you. Let's talk about all of that, but the next item, the final item on our Portland School Spotlight this evening is our new teacher video.
Right, so maybe some future teachers of the year.
Or perhaps some future teachers of the year.
Right, so I did include, by the way, in your packet tonight, the resumes of all our new teachers, and I am very pleased with the quality of the folks who we have on staff. And every year we haze them a little bit and ask them to do a new teacher video, which we show at convocation. So this is this year's new teacher video, and again, the video is quick, but you can learn a little bit more about each of our new hires if you take a look at the CVs that I included with your packet. There's our 124.
Well done. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. I believe we are ready to move on from our Portland Public School Spotlight to our Student Representative Report, and we are excited to welcome back Liam and Caitlin as our student representatives. It's nice to see you both.
This week is Career Week at Portland High School. Today, students were tasked with the theme of USA. So a lot of flags, a lot of So tomorrow is Zoom Day, Thursday is Disney Day, and last but certainly not least is Portland Pride Day, which is concluded with a pep rally to celebrate our fall athletes. Speaking of, the fall season is now in full swing, and competitions are underway, which is quite exciting for all of us. And on top of that, all of that, the band is going to Rancho Field to perform at UConn Band Day this Saturday, providing an exciting conclusion to the week.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any questions for our student reps?
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Thank you. All right, communications and updates. Dr. Britton.
Okay, a few updates for you. First, I want to start with some sad news. Over the weekend, Portland lost somebody who was one of the pillars of our community, Howard Rosenbaum. For those of you who didn't know Howard, I attended his services today, and I picked this up. I just thought I would read it and talk a little bit about some of the incredible things that Howard helped bring to our schools. But Howard Rosenbaum, Dr. Howard Rosenbaum, MD of Portland, husband of late Sari Rosenbaum, passed away on August 31st, 2024. Howard was 93 years old. That's incredible. So his memory will live on through his loving devotion to his family, friends, and the extraordinary work that he's done in the Portland community. Born in New York, he pursued medicine as a career, served in the public health service, and had a long career as a radiologist at Middlesex Memorial Hospital, where he was a corporator. He was committed to the town of Portland, where he served on the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen, in addition to being a founding member of the Brownstone Quorum and the chairman of the Gildersleeve Fund for Scholars. In 2012, he and his late wife were the joint recipients of the Distinguished Citizens Award from the Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce. For those of you who didn't know Howard, he was an incredible person, and I got to know him well through his work on the Gildersleeve Fund. He was the chairman of that committee, and he was such a support for all of us in terms of helping us move our grants through the approval process. And I just want to read some of the things that Howard helped secure the schools. These are things that our students and teachers are using every single day to make our schools just awesome. I just want to quickly read these things off. He helped us last year get the middle school TV studio, which we're putting in place, our artificial intelligence grant, the track and field equipment that we purchased last year, the weight room that we have, the brand new weight room, all kinds of reading and writing curriculum, including our entire math curriculum, Bridges, was purchased with Gildersleeve grant funds. The display cases out here in the middle school, Power School, which our teachers and students are using every single day. Science books, our robotics lab, we upgraded our cybersecurity platform, the playground out in front of Valley View that our preschool uses, the library, commons, furniture, and of course Go Baby Go, just so much. Like these are these are things that we wouldn't have if it hadn't been for both the Gildersleeve Fund and for Howard understanding the importance of these things and helping bring them to us. And I got to know Howard through that process. He was so interested in everything that was happening in the schools and saw such incredible value in all of these things and just was an incredible advocate for our schools and our students. And we wouldn't have these things if it wasn't for both that Gildersleeve Fund and for Howard's leadership of that. I'm going to miss him. He was a wonderful human being. May we all be so blessed just to make it to 93 years old and leave such an incredible legacy behind us. And I just thought I'd start tonight by recognizing Howard and all that he did for the town of Portland and for our schools.
Thank you.
So, a couple of other things. I did include in your packet tonight a few things I just wanted to bring you up to speed on. First, kind of a bummer, but we did receive a communication on August 26th from the Department of Administrative Services that the third round of HVAC grant funding that we've been hoping for is on hold. Right? So they paused that for now. The communication did say that they're hoping to bring it back and potentially bring it back in the next legislative session. It's kind of a bummer. It is something we're looking at considering applying, but there's also maybe some silver lining to this that, you know, the Buildings and Grounds Committee and our board have been considering asking for what would essentially be now a third question on the November referendum, but that probably would have been a bridge too far. So maybe now by putting this off, it might give us more time to get through November and then look to the future when this grant funding becomes available. But at this time, I certainly don't see us moving forward with the HVAC upgrades until we know more about this grant, which at this point is unknown. So thought I'd share that with you and give you that recommendation that let's wait now, get through the next legislative session, and maybe hopefully in the spring find out that there's a round 3 and then strike while the iron's hot then.
And we didn't include any of this as a possible reduction to what the Valley View School was, correct?
No,
Okay,
this would,
somebody commented.
yes, those would all be in addition.
Thank you.
Okay, the second thing I included for you is the enrollment report. So we have 1,215 students. This time last year we were at 1,207. And you see in there the new additions that we have with the 20 outplaced students, and we're at 57 open choice students. And of course, we'll keep that updated going forward. Any questions on the enrollment report?
Thank you.
Okay. Of course, I included in there all the new staff bios, and we did receive a letter of resignation from Chris Serra. I wish Chris well in his future career endeavors. Happy to report to you that all of our certified positions, including Mr. Serra's, are filled at this point. We only have 2 positions, paraprofessional positions, one that's open and one that may be open, depending on how things go tonight. I anticipate that we'll have all of our certified and non-certified faculty and staff positions filled by the end of this week. So we are in a much better place now than we have been in years past. Hopefully this is a sign that the labor shortage, both for teachers and bus drivers and paraprofessionals, is coming to an end. That's the extent of my report.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for Charles? No? All right. Thank you, Charles. We're going to move on to our report from Stephanie, our Assistant Superintendent for Business and Financial Affairs. And I understand Stephanie's with us on Zoom this evening. Hi, Stephanie. We can hear you, but give us just a minute. I think we're trying to pull you up. Okay, I think the projector is just going to warm up, but you can probably start if you're ready.
Okay. So I apologize that I couldn't be there tonight. I had a little home issue. First day of school. So there's 2 pieces that are in your packet, and the first one is the much anticipated end of year report. I appreciate all your patience while I navigated through closing the year out and figuring out how we were gonna end. Hopefully everybody was able to read the narrative. If you have any questions, I did it a little differently. I still did the comparison from last year, but in the write-up, I broke it down by the categories that are in our budget. So I don't know if anybody noticed that, but when we do our budget, the objects are, salary and then special benefits, and then it goes to purchase services. So I kind of broke it up that way, to do the surplus and the deficit. But if there's any specific line items that you had a question on as to why it would be under or over, we were pretty transparent all year long with what we expected. But this is just, seeing it on paper. But we did and will be giving back $14,153.79 to the town of the $375 additional funds that we have requested. So if anybody has any questions on this,
Other questions for Stephanie on the financial report?
So this wasn't sent out Thursday, right, or with,
It's in our drive.
It's on the drive.
It's in the communications folder in the drive.
there on Thursday?
It was hard to see because
It was upside down. I did have to hold my computer upside down to read it.
Was it the write-up and the report? Yes.
Yeah, it's all in one file.
I believe it came out on Thursday.
Thank you.
Stephanie, just a general question is, looking at this, are there any areas that you're concerned about as we start this school year and you're particularly keeping your eye on?
As of right now, no. As of right now, we are looking good in all of the objects, all of the line items. Like I said, when we did the budget for this year, a lot of it did include some of the new people that we didn't know about, but with some leaving and others coming in, it made it net. So as of right now, where we stand today, we should be okay, especially now with the savings with all the transportation that has been coming in. But once all the fields get in for a special ed, I'll have a better idea in that area. But as far as salaries go, we actually should be running a surplus in those categories, which will be helpful for any other changes going forward for this current year.
Okay, thanks. And can you remind all of us what we had budgeted for transportation this year as compared to last year? Because I know we have the savings.
So that would be on the next report.
Okay.
Budget operations report. So if you look at line 51010, it's kind of a little hard to tell. It says 1,479,598, but within that is also our contract for our actual 9 buses, which is about 624,000. There's also some other transportation, for the schools for any activities. But I don't have the document in front of me specifically for transportation.
Okay.
But I can do that for next time. But I know when Sarah talks about the van and all that, she may have some more detail with her information.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie.
Were we impacted at all in the month of July by the Eversource public benefit?
There was an increase in each one, but that typically happens in the summer. I know, some people have on their budget goes right at the top where it says public benefit. I didn't notice that on ours. I have to go into detail and see. I do know that it's a little bit higher, but it typically usually is in the summertime.
I saw it again on my August bill, so I'm just wondering, it was pretty significant, and I'm wondering if that might impact our budget as well, for electricity.
Yeah, so we've only gotten the one bill, and I honestly I was trying to close out last year, I honestly wasn't really paying attention yet to anything for this year, but now that state reports done, and we just got the next set of bills, so I'll look at those, and I can let you guys know next time if it's on there. And how much of an impact it is.
Thank you. Stephanie, don't we use direct energy as opposed to Eversource?
We
Different
do,
supplier.
but I don't know if that's the supply, I don't know if the public register goes up to the supplier or the other one.
Still have a bill?
Still on.
Yeah. It's a different supplier.
Yeah. The other piece of that to keep in mind is that we have over the past several months to a year started realizing some significant savings in our energy costs with some of the upgrades that have happened in our facilities. So that may be offsetting some of that.
If you look at the end of year report, the color document, you'll see, if you look at 62001, you'll see that it had a surplus of $64,067.50.
Yeah.
And that is a lot from the upgrade we did and the change of supplier. So, like we're starting to see some savings.
Yeah.
Once we're done paying the loan off, then we'll see more, but, there is some savings. And then the solar panel from Brownstone also helps as well.
Great. Anything else, Stephanie? We sort of swiveled from the.
Back and forth to both.
Yeah, but that's all right.
Did anybody have any other questions about the end of year?
We want to come when the auditor finishes and we get the report back in November, December.
Yeah. So I just want to say, Stephanie, I think your transparency in communicating our financial situation over the last, over the last 6 months, 8 months, however long it was ago that you started projecting the deficit situation. It was so thorough that I look at what you provided us at the end of year, and none of it is a surprise. We were very well prepared. So thank you for that ongoing communication and transparency. Did you?
On to this year?
Yeah, that's great.
So this year, like I said, as of right now, we're seeing a surplus in the certified line item, at 11011. There we're getting pretty spot on, 11012. You'll see that negative of the triggers, but we don't usually budget in that because that gets offset, what we put funds, and I don't entry at the end of the year for that. And the only one in the negative is the equipment line, 73012, that's from the purchase of land. And so the savings from transportation, because we don't do budget transfers, that'll always be a lot negative. But, as we go through, I'll just remind everybody that the savings that we have will help offset that.
It should more than offset that.
Yeah. So those are really the only two that, stand out as negatives, but they're really not negatives, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's great. Are there any questions, any additional questions for Stephanie on the current financial report?
Stephanie, just very quickly, I know we didn't do anything in Fund 11, and also the Sodexo did not receive any extra money, the food service. But where did we, I know Bob Shea has done amazing work up here painting and doing things in the buildings, in spite of the fact that we didn't fund that. But can you tell me a little bit about where we're pulling that money from, by the tank, which saved us about $7,500 on a paint job that we had custodial work and our resource officer do the summer in high school.
And as of right now, that all came out of the LA budget. Really just purchasing the paint. And we usually do an open scale anyways.
Right.
Several million, so that was, and it really wasn't even that much. I've seen the receipts come through.
Right.
So, that was all saved just from having them do it in high school straight. I've only seen high school, I don't know what other schools look like, but the school looked great.
It does.
It's great. Yeah, he saved a lot of money. Thank you.
And you may have touched it, but it went a little quick for me with the 73014 technology hardware. Can you explain that one again? Or if you could?
Technology hardware, so that is, any parts or any computer pieces that the defense department needs. They were drastically cut during the budget process, so that only left them with $6,500. So they're kind of just going and purchasing things that they need, see pertinent to purchase, right now.
Angela, was your question about the fourth quarter and year-end summary report? Is that what you're looking at?
Maybe. Following, I'm sorry. But I don't know if I have the second page for the authorized spending, right? Authorized spending doesn't have a back to it.
I think you're right.
I'm page from probably very beginners.
We don't have the back.
Yeah, there was, I think maybe a printing issue with their packet, so I'm following along on my computer because I also don't have the second page. So I think you were looking at the second page from the fourth quarter end of year document, and you were looking at the first page from the current financial report.
Okay. That's why I'm having a hard time following.
So were you asking about that line item?
Well, it's from last year, right? So that one we went over.
Yeah.
I think you had anticipated already, right?
Right,
Right.
you're right, almost 12,000
Yeah.
deficit.
I was thinking we already had a deficit this year for the technology hardware, but you're saying we don't?
No, this year we have,
Still 31.75% left.
Yeah. yeah, usually, they purchase most of the stuff in the beginning of the year, and then as things, break or come up with, meetings, that's when, skills will come in for that, but we're pretty good at that time.
You guys break stuff?
Wear and tear.
Wear and tear. Are there any additional questions? No?
No, very thorough report, Stephanie, thank you.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, thank you, Stephanie.
And we get about 14,000 back in 10s and 20s, or?
I don't know, never seen that before.
That's funny. All right, I think we're maybe all set for now with Stephanie, but Stephanie, I hope you'll hang on the line for later for our conversation about the minivan.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to our report from Eric, our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Technology.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My monthly report is a little bit
Here, this is a report that bridges the gap between the end of last school year, our summer months, and what's been a successful start to this school year. So I'm just going to give a couple highlights, and then I'm happy to take any questions on anything in my report or otherwise. So at the top of my plan, I put just a quick update about our continuous improvement plans. We understand the board is eager to have input or greater understanding of how our improvement plans are developed. Dr. Britton and I are working on a better timeline to include the board in those conversations. Our improvement plans tend to be formulated, conceptualized. I mean, they're living plans, so we're always conceptualizing and formulating ways we can continuously improve across our schools and departments. But those conversations really start in the spring. We use faculty input, we use climate and culture survey data from staff, students, families. We use assessment data, things we start to take in the spring, as well as looking back the year behind to inform what the goals for the subsequent year will be. Then our administrators go off in the summer and start to formulate kind of skeletal outlines of what those plans might look like. We lay out the goals and objectives, and then our principals especially like to come back together with their staff and develop the key action steps to meet those goals and objectives in the fall. So within that time frame, the best time to include the board in the conversation is probably in the spring or the summer. Right now, we're kind of in the final drafting stage. But nonetheless, we appreciate the fact that the board wants input or wants to be a part of that conversation. And so we've developed kind of a stopgap process. Over the summer months, Dr. Britton provided the Board of Education members with what we might call outline or draft versions of those plans. And they look a little bit different between schools and buildings. Some have started to already lay out action steps, some are still in the goals and objectives stage. You can see where those plans are, where they currently exist. They're probably a little further down the line now. But nonetheless, you have access to those via a shared folder. And then I created what I call the shared input document. So Board of Education members can look at those plans and enter any suggestions, questions on that shared input document. And then our principals, our department directors will see the input from the board, consider your input in the final drafting of those plans that we're scheduled to present to the board beginning later this month. And at that time, we can inform the board of how we consider your suggestions or questions as we work towards final drafts. This isn't a perfect process. We'll continue to refine it with intent of getting the board around the table with us earlier in the process. A quick update on talent management. We submitted over the summer, as required by state guidelines, our revised educator and administrator growth and support plans. Those plans, if you recall, were passed before the Board of Education for consideration and ultimately your approval at the end of the school year. You did approve those as a body. We submitted them on time to the state. We got it, that was at the beginning of July. In early August, we got initial feedback from the state that we needed to make some very minor, what I really consider clerical revisions to those plans. We needed to add a sentence here, something that we didn't just make explicit enough. The revision needs were so minimal that I didn't even consider bringing PDEC back together. I just made the clerical revisions into the plan, submitted the plan the day after we got the initial feedback from the state, and then just a couple days after that, we were informed by the state that our plan was fully approved. That's a real milestone for our district. Standing up here, I have to thank the hard work of the PDEC committee. We met 10 times last year, above and beyond school hours. That was a voluntary body. We engaged in deep study of those guidelines. We heard from consultants. We considered all the late and coming the state model plans that were released. And we used all of that deep study to create a plan that, from the onset, was a really good plan. Just kind of reaching across my network, there are many districts that are starting this school year without an approved evaluation plan. So we are in a much better place than many. That again is thanks to the hard work of our PDEC committee and to the support of the Board of Education, and number one, giving us feedback along the way of developing that plan and ultimately approving it. So thank you. That's really great news for the district. And we've begun providing our teachers orientation to that plan already. Their goal setting meetings for the year come quick. Those happen in the month of October, but we're right on time. And the feedback from our initial orientation sessions on the new plans, which I led, were all positive. I saw a lot of smiling faces, a lot of nodding heads, and afterwards people told me this seems really great. I'm looking forward to this. Ultimately, it's a system that starts from a basis of professional trust versus our former model. So enough about that, but it's a really celebratory moment for the district. On August 22nd and 23rd, we held our new hire orientation. You saw one of the outcomes of that, which is our new hire video. That's our little bit of rookie hazing. A fun tradition here at PHS. But really the 2 days are kind of jam-packed with information meant to help our new hires settle, learn the most important things they need to know at the beginning of their careers here in Portland Public Schools, which we hope are long and successful careers. I would be remiss if I didn't give a special thanks to Dylan Bernard and Morgan Smith, two Portland Public Schools educators who we tapped this year. This is Dylan's second year doing it. Morgan's first year doing it. She replaced Tracy Graff, who joined administrator ranks. But they were just incredible facilitators over the 2 days. And it's a really busy time of year for administrators. We know that new hire orientation is important, but we're so thankful to be able to put it in the hands of two of our best and know that our new hires are going to get everything they need and all the positivity that makes our district great. I also want to give special thanks to Meg Scott for leading our new hires on our annual bus tour, which is something I think we brought back 3 years ago.
It's the third year.
Third year, and honestly, it has become a real highlight of the program.
It is for me too.
Yeah.
Really, I've learned a lot about Portland, although I call it my adopted hometown. I've really learned a lot. And the bus driver this year was helpful again. She panicked and thought she was going to have to direct the bus tour. So I assured her I had my notes and we were ready to go, but she was great. So
I'm sure
it's
that's
been
right.
really a highlight for me too.
And it's a rare opportunity. I think there's a lot of people that work in Portland that see Portland as Main Street and a couple streets off of Main Street. And so to get up and out into the nether reaches of Portland, it just shows them a little bit more about our town and where our families come from and the vast makeup of our district. So thank you, Meg. That led directly to convocation and our back to school PD schedule for staff, which I've included here. Thank you to Chairwoman Steinhauser, who I think really set a nice tone of convocation with some sentiments about gratitude and the importance of teachers, or educators, I should say. Followed up by remarks from Dr. Britton, in which we do a lot of special things at convocation, in addition to recognizing our parent and teacher of the year, recognizing tenure, recognizing years of service. It's really a celebratory kind of feel-good morning for our district. Our food service director, Anita LaCasse, did an excellent job laying out a welcome back breakfast for everyone. So it was a wonderful morning. From there, we kind of moved through an agenda of back to school business for the remainder of that day. And on the second day, our certified staff PD day, we had Matt Mervis, a consultant from Ed Advance, who we utilized for capstone, for our PIP project. He's brilliant with personal interest projects and capstone projects for students, but he's also over the past couple of years really become the go-to state level expert for all things artificial intelligence and education. So, in remembering Dr. Rosenbaum, Dr. Britton, made reference to the AI Gildersleeve grant that we were awarded last year at the tune of $15,000. And that grant is really to help move the ball forward with artificial intelligence understanding, use, ethics in Portland Public Schools. Our keynote address at the Back to School PD Day was really the kickoff to all of that. So helping our faculty understand that, yes, artificial intelligence is scary at face value, but it's also got great power and great potential to improve our work as educators and our impacts on young people. And over the course of this keynote, Mr. Mervis was able to show teachers some of the practical uses for artificial intelligence to make their work smarter, not harder, more impactful, more sensible for kids, to help to create things like durable learning tasks. And even just to get input on their ideas, right, from a broad body of knowledge, which is really what artificial intelligence represents when used correctly, when you use prompting correctly. It allows you to take an idea and, if your idea had 2 legs that were your own, your idea becomes a centipede with 100 legs or 1,000 legs with the ideas and input from the world around you. So it's an exciting beginning. From there, Mr. Mervis worked with our teachers in breakout sessions to provide them some advanced training on prompting, which is really how do you use AI, how do you put information or requests into AI engines to get the best results. And there's some interesting quirks there, like if you say please and thank you in an AI engine, you actually get better results. Not quite sure why, but manners matter even in an artificial intelligence world. We'll have Mr. Mervis back throughout the year to continue training our teachers on use of AI. And the idea here is that we embolden, we empower our teachers to use AI effectively, and then they become better purveyors of AI usage with our students, which will come in time. Important to note that right now we do not allow the use of artificial intelligence for students in Portland Public Schools, but we're working on that. We want to unlock that this year, and we want to do it strategically and carefully, and make sure that we have guidelines for effective practice and usage ethics along the way. And we'll be working in short order to develop an AI district-wide committee that can help to inform things like policy, or at the student usage level, recommended practices. Our summer learnings program recap, I want to thank the large number of educators, upwards of 30 Portland Public Schools educators who helped to staff our summer learning programs. This is not including ESY, which operates on the special education side. This is instead our in-person enrichment and online summer learning programs. Our in-person enrichment served approximately 20 Portland Public Schools families in the areas of literacy and math enrichment over the summer months for largely identified students who needed a little bit of a boost. Our online summer program, we had over 80 students participate in high-interest virtual projects that could be completed anywhere. Students completed weekly themed projects and competed for raffle prizes. And I just want to plant a seed with the board. These have been largely successful programs over the, Dr. Britton, 4 years, I believe we've been running them. They've been funded through ESSER funds, which are expiring. So we will have a decision on our hands in advance of next budget year of how we wish to continue funding summer learning, but we do have a successful model to report on. And thank you to the teachers and coordinators who helped to run those programs. Just a couple more things quickly. Our K-3 literacy update. So we are full speed ahead with a planned 6-week pilot of Into Reading. The board might recall we had intended to pilot Into Reading about halfway through last school year, but our teachers expressed concern that they thought it would be too disruptive to do a pilot in the middle of the school year. At the same time, just about the same time, the state released some additional curricular options on their approved menus for districts to consider. We looked at all of those. We came back to Into Reading still as our preferred program, and that was with additional site visits to other user districts and an intent to do a pilot at the beginning of the year. So that pilot is scheduled to start on Monday. We're in the process of informing families right now via letters from our principals and what to expect. We've worked hard to ensure that this is value add. This will not be a disruption to students' learning. And we have contingency plans in place for if the pilot goes really well and we love it and it's a smashing success, which we really do anticipate that it will be given all that we've learned about the program, that we will just continue on with Into Reading as our curriculum for the remainder of the year. We'll apply grant money towards purchasing materials to keep the program going. If the program proves to be less than successful, we'll reconvene our K-3 literacy committee and we'll engage in deep study again to plan next steps with the intent of solidifying a program for the beginning of next school year. And that would include a second pilot.
Eric, can you remind us quickly, is the Into Reading curriculum supplementing what we're already using, or will it be entirely replacing what we're currently using?
We looked at options of what the state calls compendium approaches, which you can use a little bit from this pile and a little bit from that pile and a little bit from the other pile. And we had options in place already that represented some of those piles. For example, Foundations is a program that we've used. But in those combination options, we didn't like the core comprehension pieces that were usable. So we went back to Into Reading because it does represent like a singular one-stop shop program that contains everything. All of the routines fit together. And importantly, we felt that it had the best comprehension piece of any available, in addition to a very strong structured literacy piece. Structured literacy is what we currently use Foundations for, and we found Into Reading to be comparable, if not at least on paper or in form, potentially better than Foundations. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I do have one more question. How
Sure.
is the support from the vendor on this? Because a lot of the complaints that people had about any of the programs was that the bandwidth for getting support from the company, from the publisher of these programs.
I have had nothing but dependable, whatever we want support from HMH, the publisher of Into Reading. I will say, I've said this often at this podium, there's great privilege in not being the first one to do something. So HMH ran other pilots in our state, in other districts, as did these other vendors, and there was an initial crush because there were 7 approved programs, and you can imagine all the people lining up for those 7 programs. We were maybe 7 in line. We took our time, we deliberated, and in that time, I think they got a lot of feedback about their customer service, availability of materials, availability of training, and like I said, I've had nothing but positive experiences. Whatever we want has been given to us. Thus far, it's been given to us free of charge, and so we're in a really good position.
Good. That's good to hear.
And the $47,000 that we've received in grant funding from the state, will that cover, should this pilot go really well and we want to continue with Into Reading, will that funding cover what we need to do that for the remainder of the year, or are we going to be scrambling to figure that out?
HMH has told me we will, no matter what, make it work.
Okay.
It's not to say that it would be more than $47,000, but I'm in process right now with the vendor, with HMH, to use layman terms. I said, give me the Cadillac quote, the Chevy quote, and the Pinto quote of what it would take to keep the program moving forward. Because there's different tiers, there's different options and levels of resources available, and then we'll make a decision what works best for us. Also with an eye on what year-to-year costs would be for things like student consumables.
Thank you.
But I don't want to sugarcoat it. This will represent at some point an increase in our annual operating budget once our grant funding expires, because these are programs with requisite annual purchase materials. We're coming off a curriculum that didn't have those. Teachers College was a largely a one-time startup cost. And it was, if for those of us, I was not here at the time, but Gildersleeve Grant helped us to build extensive classroom libraries to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars at the time. Interreading would not require those one-time startup costs, but we will likely be incurring annual costs in the form of things like student workbooks, which are part of the program.
So to your point again, because I know that we were buying the book fair when you also bought classroom libraries, what happens to those books now?
So those classrooms, they're still, we have resource-rich classrooms, right? Our libraries are good libraries. We de-leveled libraries, so shelves full of books are great for kids. Interreading has recommended classroom library sets that over time we may want to augment our classroom libraries to contain, but it's not prohibited to starting the program. You don't need to have the Interreading classroom library set. It's a classroom library, I won't say agnostic program, but it doesn't require you to have classroom libraries full of specific titles in the same way that Teachers College did.
Is there any way to look at those classroom libraries and compare to what into reading so that there may be, there's classics that are in the libraries for 20 years and they're still valid books for teachers?
That's part of the quote gathering process, is what titles are recommended for which grade level libraries. So more to come on that. Okay. But we do have $47,000, which represents a sizable chunk of money. And I will say, we had planned a pilot of Interreading in January, which was at a different point in the curriculum. The curriculum operates in modules. We're piloting modules 1, 2, and 3. We had planned last year to pilot modules 7, 8, and 9. HMH shipped everything to us. When we decided not to pilot modules 7, 8, 9, I asked, what do you want us to do with this material? They said, keep it. If you choose to use the program, you have it. And they're not going to charge us for it retroactively. So we're, like I said, we're in a good position with a vendor that I feel very positive about. My final update, the board had expressed concern given the number of teacher resignations over the course of the summer in seeing staff culture and climate survey data from the previous school year. Just a reminder that our principals do consider culture and climate data in the formation of their TACO plans. They have talent goals, which speak to culture and climate amongst professional staff, and the C in TACO stands for culture, but more along the culture for students and families in their buildings. So they set goals based on the data that those surveys yield. So when our principals are up here presenting their plans later this month and the beginning of October, you can ask them, how were these goals, objectives, action steps informed by data that was returned to you from your spring surveys. But nonetheless, I've made those surveys, the staff culture and climate surveys, available to the board for your review and via a shared folder. That was requested by the board, so you have that as linked in my report. And again, you'll hear more about that data and how it was used to inform improvement plans as our principals present later this month and early next. That's my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Kids got their books.
Chromebooks, yes. I would be remiss. Thank you. Technology updates. I have to give a shout out to our IT staff. They are 4 people. Holly Russo is our district data specialist, and we have 3 individuals that service the device, internet, smart board, wiring needs of everyone in this district. And yes, Angela, thank you. Everyone is outfitted with a device, our students, our new hires. We have classroom shared sets in kindergarten. So everyone is good to go. We're plugged in, we're Wi-Fi enabled, and we're secure. Thank you.
I was going to ask something along those lines. It says something note in here of Chromebook replenishment.
Yeah.
And I probably should know this, but what's the plan for this year?
So if you remember, yeah, I think I told you about a tsunami coming in 25, 26. We've since kind of re-engineered the replenishment cycle, so we're trying to get to the place of consistent ripples in the budget each year that fund our replenishment cycle. And this year would represent kind of the first level of commitment to that. So we would look to purchase somewhere on average of 250 Chromebooks a year so that we can offboard 250 Chromebooks a year. And they don't go from being used to being paperweights. It's like we take the ones at the very, very bottom of the food chain, and those become obsolete. And then we take ones that are coming off of warranty, and we put them at the bottom of the food chain per se, and the new ones go to the top. And the goal that we're trying to get to is, remember, these devices come with a 4-year warranty, is that every student entering grade 5 and every student entering grade 9 gets a new Chromebook every year. So the 5th grader, that lasts them until high school, the 9th grader, that lasts them until they graduate, and then we do a combination of either selling off those extra devices for whatever value is left, or repurposing them to the bottom of our food chain. You'll be hearing more about that as we get closer to budget season, but I think we've stabilized that we're not going to need a massive capital outlay like we did previously, if we can commit to funding it through
Took 3 years to get here, but thank you.
We did.
It really sounds like we're now moving in the right direction.
We are, and on a day-to-day basis, again, our IT staff does incredible work keeping breath into our old and antiquated devices, which are fewer than we've ever had before. When we first started here, we had a lot of paperweights. We're down to maybe 1 or 2 grades of paperweight devices.
Eric, I have a question for you about summer learning programs that took place in this district, especially as we move into budget season this fall, and we're thinking about, whether these programs are something that we wish to consider funding. I think we've seen, my memory is correct, numbers kind of decrease from year to year to year of participation. And I guess I'm curious, and you don't have to feel like you have to answer this now, but looking forward, can we get some data on overall participation, and is there any kind of assessment that happens? What are students taking away from this experience?
Yeah, it's certainly a kind of feedback loop we haven't closed other than looking at enrollment numbers. I mean, at face value, we did struggle this year to get families in for in-person enrichment. And there's a number of reasons, including it's in the prime of summer, families are busy, and a lot of our identified families may not have access to getting their kids to school. These aren't transportation inclusive programs. I will say we did see an uptick in participation in our online program this year. This was our highest level of participation in the past 3 years. But I can certainly work on some type of feedback we can get, even if it's from our educators.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful,
Yeah.
even if it's anecdotal, some way to help us understand the impact that it's having on students.
Yeah, I think there's probably good data to be gleaned even from the community at large of whether or not they desire summer learning programs versus just operating off of the assumption that if we build it, they will come, because we've seen that pan out in some ways and not pan out in others, and it is a large commitment of resources and money, and we want to make sure that we're getting the bang for our buck and that our families are as well.
That's a great question. These were project-based weeks, so that kids were given, if they came in person, if they did online, they did a week's worth of a project, and then.
That was online. Online is kind of theme, project-based learning opportunities. So you may have like a lower grade, like this is beach week, and all the activities and projects and learning adventures revolve around ideas of the beach, right? Our in-person programs were more targeting priority skill development in areas of literacy and mathematics, and then they would have like an enrichment period within that day where, hey, you're going to do a little bit of literacy, you're going to do a little bit of math, and then you're going to go, do an arts and crafts activity or play an organized game of sorts. So slightly different things.
Just since you opened that door, I wanted to ask, but I was gonna do it offline. Are we able to measure that potentially their grades have improved by attending these summer programs? I just back up 1 second. Has it been going on 4 years or 2 years?
It's been going on 4 years.
4 years, and so
It started coming
we've
out.
had 80 students over the course of 4 years, about 20 each year?
This year our numbers were a little less. So in previous years when we started the enrichment program, we had numbers approaching 30 or 40 total enrollment. We did struggle this year to get families in. We were a little bit later, maybe a week or 2 later this year in getting the word out due to planning and staffing turnover, or staffing applications to those programs. So we didn't have full staffing to run the programs until a little bit later on in the process. As far as whether or not participation in summer learning improves students' grades, it's hard to say. I mean, if we're gonna look at standardized assessment measures, those typically aren't administered until the spring. And our students that would come to our in-person enrichment programs, for example, those are most often students that are receiving intervention services during the school year. So it's hard to say in the, I guess, weird terminology, but in the stew of their academic success, what was the main ingredient? It's hard when you look at that. If they're successful or their grades improved, it could be from a combination of factors, including the supports and services they receive during the school year.
So maybe some of the indicators for when you come back to ask if you do for additional funding when we don't have the, is it a grant? Is it?
That was ESSER
a
funding.
federal grant.
ESSER funding.
Yeah.
If there's any way that we can maybe get feedback from maybe parents? Maybe
Yeah.
parents might have seen an improvement in behavior, or anything that you think may have given us some good indicators of success.
Yeah, it's a great suggestion. I'm seeing kind of the feedback is kind of twofold. One fold would be for families that have participated in our programs. What's that experience been like? Did you value it? Would you do it again? Did you see a positive change in your child? We can couple that with some, even if it's anecdotal, academic feedback from our teachers. And then the second fold might just be the community at large of, is it important to you that summer learning opportunities are available in person or that summer online learning opportunities are available? How likely would you be to take advantage of these programs if they were offered or if they're continuing to
And
offer?
maybe some breakout into what grade levels seem to participate more than others, or just get that grade level, not so much the students, or maybe the sex of the child as well as the, just for informational purposes. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, we'll put together, again, I think, to your point, to the time that we're ready to perhaps make a budget request for increased funding, we'll come with the data to justify it.
Thank you.
Unless we decide we're not gonna request funding because we have feedback that suggests not, and then we'll present why to the board, we're not requesting funding.
Thank you.
Sounds like a good plan. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks.
Any additional questions for Eric on his report? No? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to move to new business, and the first item under new business is a request for an addition of 2 paraeducators that Dr. Britton is going to talk us through.
Sure, do we have, you still have Sarah and Stephanie on, right? Is it? Good. So, right, so feel free to chime in, but we're coming forward with 2 paraeducator requests, add 2 FTE paraeducators. One is for a new student who comes to us with an IEP that requires a paraprofessional. That's correct, right, Sarah? I just want to double check that.
Sorry, I was waiting to be unmuted. Yeah, so this is an open choice student that enrolled a couple of days before school and currently had a one-to-one paraprofessional in her IEP. And after meeting the student, holding an intake PPT, and meeting with them, it was clear, that was a need that was still present. So one of the FTE paraprofessionals would be to fill that position to support her in our RISE program.
And open choice pairs we would bill back to Hartford. So this would not have an influence on our LEA budget. The second one, though, this is for our pre-K program. Sarah, why don't you describe the need? I'll describe what we did last year and why it makes sense to do it differently this year.
Sure. So historically, until a few years ago, Charles checked them out on that one, but we typically had one classroom paraprofessional, if you will, in each pre-kindergarten class. And that was just due to the intensive nature of the students. Most of them are still working on toileting. It really is a 2-person, if not more than 2-person job. Keeping in mind that the majority of our pre-kindergarten students are students with special needs, since we do a model pre-K program, so the bulk of them are students that have significant needs. In budget seasons, that had been lost, or oftentimes that individual, at one point it was split between the 2 classrooms. There was one pair supporting 2 rooms, that individual became a one-to-one paraprofessional for a child whose needs arose throughout the year. Another thing to keep in mind with pre-K is because when a student turns 3, we need to start providing service for them. With their birth to 3 intake, we determine, yes, we need to provide them school-based services. Pre-K doesn't enroll solely in August like our other grades. Really, students are coming in throughout the year depending on when their birthday is. So Charles will go into the reasoning why, but having a paraprofessional in each pre-K classroom has been something that has been utilized in the past and been successful. And again, that's due to the developmental needs of a child who is 3 or 4 years old. Also, the idea that students are rolling enrollment throughout the year, and they're typically students with very high needs because they are a model pre-K program. If that all makes sense.
And Stephanie's on, she can explain. So this need has been here for a while. Last year, we covered the need by hiring a substitute teacher through ESS. Right? And we had someone who was really good, and we were very lucky. But this year, it makes sense not to go through ESS, and we do have some of the placeholder savings available in our classified and certified salary accounts because we've been doing a very good job of hiring lower on the salary schedule. You heard Stephanie reference a site so far, surplus, but we do have enough placeholder savings there from the hiring of newer teachers lower on the salary schedule and teachers leaving who are higher on the salary schedule that we can absorb this both by not paying ESS and through some of those placeholder savings. Stephanie, did you want to chime in on that one?
No, I think you covered most of it. Ideally, you want to put something like that in the budget. You don't want to put it through ESS because not that it's not transparent, but it's not. You want to make it more real. You want to make it more. If you have the opportunity to get it in the budget, then that's the route that's best for the district, best for all of us. And like I said before, with the savings that we have in salaries right now, it covers it easily. Now again, down the line, I don't know what's going to happen. I can't see the future, but we have to base everything off of what we know today. And this is all we know right now. And the need there, and they would just go for ESS. And our subline is always over budget. So this will also help out with that as well.
Right.
And making more transparent.
So just a quick question, because, with only one person last year sharing 2 classrooms, what happens when that person's out? Where do you pull a para from?
So we had 2 people though. One was a para and one was an ESS person. Back to your question, that is something that the principals manage every day, both in terms of paras being absent and teachers being absent, because many times when teachers are absent, we pull paras to cover them. It's not easy, but we Jenga it together as best we can with our existing personnel and what ESS can provide us. ESS has gotten better. The fill rates have improved dramatically, thank goodness, since the COVID years when, if you remember, we were recruiting like crazy, college kids home because their schools were closed and all that. It has gotten better, but by moving in this direction, it helps us build that capacity even more effectively.
We have 2 pre-K classrooms this year with 31 kids, and 1 teacher and a para hopefully.
We have 2 pre-K teachers, and we need 2 paras. And we have 1 para already, and we're backfilling the other one with ESS. We're suggesting to make that the second para.
Absolutely. That clarifies it.
Other questions for Dr. Britton about the request or the need? Are there questions for Stephanie about the finances and how this will be paid for?
I just wanted to confirm, these are full day paraprofessionals, right? So they'll be in the morning and the afternoon preschool sessions?
Correct.
Do you need a motion?
We do.
I'll make a motion that we add 2 additional para-educators to our group of para-educators to be in the pre-K area.
One with
One
pre-K.
pre-K,
One
one
pre-K,
one
one
zero
for
for
one-to-one.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Tim, thank you. Is there any further discussion? No, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, we're gonna move on to transportation, and, the first item under transportation is discussion of the purchase of a minivan.
So I will tee this one up, and this is a moment where I ask for forgiveness, not permission, because we've already done it. Now, in fairness, we did review this through the personnel committee and buildings and grounds, so we've had lots of board members involved in this. But I also, I'll tee this up for Sarah, because this is all her work. And boy, are we lucky to have Sarah. She's doing an amazing job, right on top of everything. And she and Olivia put together this proposal, worked the numbers, and it's exemplary work. So Sarah, why don't I let you talk us through it, because this is your baby.
Sure, thank you so much, Dr. Gordon. Yeah, before I start, I just have to thank Olivia Lafarge, who's my assistant and soon-to-be transportation coordinator, and then Bob Shea, who was actually lettering the van in his driveway one night after school. I don't know if he has lettering materials that he was making, but, you know, it's a team effort to make this happen. You know, we heard that it was certainly something the board was asking for, to look into fiscally responsible solutions to transportation, and I think we found one, but it's not without really a lot of hard work from several folks. So in your board packet, you have, you know, a little breakdown from me. I'll just give an overview. So essentially, when we were building this run, we were balancing distance-wise what makes sense. We know typically our students who are outplaced are on solo runs, so we're paying for one run per student on a transportation company, which are typically, you know, between $25,000 and $40,000 depending on the company and the distance. But we had to balance this van being able to manage as many runs as possible. So what we were able to do, if you look in like the second table in the transportation column of your document, is we were able to fit transportation for 3 outplaced students who are close to Portland. So you see in the cost column there, that's the price that is stating those 3 students being on our bus, or our van rather, instead of their own minibus through another company. We also have a couple of costs in here that are not exact, they approximate. I put in what we spent last year. For example, students with short-term medical needs. We occasionally have students who break a leg, who can't get on a regular bus for a period, and then we put them on a bus for that reason. So last year we spent about $5,700 on that. So that would be able to be covered with this van. We have one student who is currently using it right now. There's another savings in the bus monitor. If students are currently not placement, who no longer needs that monitor. McKinney-Bento are unhoused students. That of course fluctuates with students living situations throughout the year, students who move in and move out. Last year we spent about $18,000. Right now our McKinney-Bento students who need transport are also on this van. So that represents that savings. The in-district runs, so students in our bridge program that are going from Gildersleeve to Brownstone and from Valley to Brownstone. Last year we spent about $67,000 on that transport. In addition to students who might require partial days, so students who were titrating them up, spending a full day at school, they require transport home earlier in the day. So that is also captured on this van. We have one partial day student who is using it right now, and all of our bridge students have been using it for transport between Gildersleeve and Brownstone. Then we also have a transition academy student who goes to a work study, and typically we would have to pay that hourly, and it's a 6-month program, so that would run us about $43,000. That student is also on this van. Another thing that we've looked into, we haven't started, but is field trips. So for small groups of students, we have a couple of folks at the high school reach out that if the club advisor were to say get their van driver, on their license, their endorsement, could we use these for small groups of field trips where typically we're paying for an hourly bus. That's not something we've started, but we're looking into. But if you see in that document, we have the upfront cost of the van, the decal, the registration, the cost of the driver. And I can go, if Charles would like, I can go into detail of the drivers that we have hired. The stipend for the transportation coordinator, that puts our savings year 1, so with that initial investment of the van and the camera and the walkies, around $122,000. Again, that will fluctuate depending on the McKinney-Bento, medical needs, things like that. And then in years beyond, obviously minusing out that initial cost, about $170,000. So it's not a super exact, because a lot of those costs wax and wane, but it does represent a significant savings to us as a district.
How does the insurance factor into here? Do we insure these individually, these vehicles, or how does that? Like the van, we have a van now. Does the district insure that?
Stephanie, you wanna talk about that?
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure it's insured, but then we also had to get, additional workers' comp, for the additional drivers. I have not gotten the information on how much extra that is, because I don't know if it goes by just how many hours they work, but I did have to relay that information to Tom for him to, up the policy.
Because that would add into these figures as well, whatever the insurance.
I can confirm what the difference is, but our legal workers' comp is, I want to say self-funded, but we put an amount, a certain amount in it every year. I don't know if you remember, 2 years ago, we shorted ourselves on the workers' comp insurance because we had a fund balance and we were in a deficit. So this year, I was able to put in a little bit more to try and refill it back up. Because there's always usually a fund balance within there. So I think we're okay for the workers' comp piece, but I can confirm, what the actual additional cost would be. So we budgeted about $122,000 for that, and I think the actual cost was about $127,000. So like I said, I can confirm what the new total would be adding those 3 additional people on.
Right, I was also just, I didn't think of the workers' comp, so you had me on that. I was thinking just the insurance for the vehicle itself, to cover the liability, the comprehensive coverage.
So I'm going to be honest, I don't believe that's within our budget. I've never seen insurance for vehicles or anything else that we own. So I guess I can get back to you on that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how many vehicles the district owns, right?
Well, we had a van last year, and
Right, yeah, I remember we didn't have any. Yeah.
Right, so I don't remember seeing.
Maybe the town
When
doesn't
we had
have
the one,
it.
when we had the minibuses, it was through a company called Colonial. But then when we got rid of the minibuses, I honestly don't know what happened.
Well, hopefully these are
There
insured.
would also be maintenance on the van, right? And then,
Yeah.
taxes.
So we did talk to Bob about maintenance on the van, in our,
Initial conversation.
in the conversation with buildings and grounds, is that correct? And when, it's too bad Bob's not here to answer this himself, but what he has assured us is that the maintenance costs for new vans initially over the first few years are very low, and most of it was, able to be done, or all of it was able to be done in-house, or with the town.
With the town garage.
And what about property taxes on a new vehicle? It's usually pretty steep.
I don't know if we're subject to property taxes, to be honest with you, that's a good question, but I don't know if we are.
And what do you anticipate for fuel? You know, I mean, gas is expensive, or is it diesel?
Yeah, Stephanie will have to answer that, based on.
Stephanie, did you hear Angela's question?
Fuel
Just
costs.
the fuel costs too, right?
Well, if you think about when we get billed from MJ and other companies, they bill us, they include fuel costs in the price that they bid out. So you're paying for fuel also within MJ.
Right, but if you're
Well,
gonna
this
do,
isn't N&J, this is our own, we're.
Right, and also, it falls within the savings. I mean, the fuel's gonna be whatever gas costs and how much it uses, but it's still a savings within that. I mean, like I said, so we've been going for a week.
So I imagine we'll be learning over the next year what it costs to fuel this van to do these runs. It would be interesting to look back at this past year with the transition program, having the van for the first year with the transition program, how much fuel we used and what that cost us over the last year. I imagine this will be different because it looks like this van is going to be used potentially more heavily.
And it's regular gas, not diesel like for the buses. And again, I did not see a huge change, I'll say, last year with what was happening in the, for the transition program. Again, I don't know how often it ran.
Yeah.
And when it actually got started by the time we got a driver. So again, we may need like a full year to understand how that, how much.
I think Bob indicated that we could get our fuel at the town garage, and somehow that's through the town sale prices or whatever, and maintenance as well. And I think we'll just have to see. Good news is the senior center also got the Civica van just about the same week that we acquired our second van. And so the experience will be based on, we're all getting the same vehicles, so that makes a big difference as well. And the last thing I want to say is that both of these vehicles will be registered as carrying school children, and they will be marked as such so that they will have all proper signage. And Bob was going to make sure that the original van transition program was also going to be marked as such. So
That's right.
it was a miracle that they got this done within a week, and there were several meetings and conversations that were going on. And I think Sarah, that first morning, 6:30, the kid had to be at school and picked up at 6:30 in the van, and the van was on the road and ready to go. Correct.
Yeah, so we started running a couple districts that our students go to started prior to Portland. So we were able to do a dry run with both the two main drivers, and those went well. And then we had runs going before Portland started. And I think to everyone's point, there will certainly be like points of learning throughout this year of what works best and what anticipated challenges we have. But the savings there of 100,000 plus, I can't think we're going to spend nearly that much in gas. And this really isn't an undershoot too. I put for McKinney-Vento for things like that, the lower end of what we pay. So I think overall, there's areas to learn and figure out as we go along, but it is an enormous opportunity for savings for us. So I'm glad we're able to get that done with your support.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Sarah, a year from now, we will have probably very good data to show us, how much we can anticipate spending on gasoline and, the impacts to workers' comp, et cetera. So this is an exciting opportunity, and as Charles mentioned, it moved forward with the full support of the Buildings and Grounds Committee as well as the Personnel Committee.
Are we seeing any other opportunities that you're pursuing to save money on special needs, either programs or anything else that you might see, that you might be looking into?
Yeah, sure. So transportation is a tricky one. We do, the distance that some of our students travel to outplacements is quite long. Sometimes it's 45 minutes. So for us to fund more than we are funding right now, transport through Portland would be tricky. We did look at some of our students, and if we're taking a child to say Madison and back, that really is a solo run. So I think as far as transportation savings, we're at a ceiling right now of what we can do. I think to Laurel's point, like we reconvene at the end of this year, see what we spent, see if there's opportunities, but I wouldn't feel comfortable expanding, going into the transportation business more than we already have. That answers your question.
Yeah, it's a good start. It's a really great step.
I think I was going,
Other things.
yeah, other things within special needs for children besides transportation. Are there any other avenues of savings that you might be pursuing?
Sure. So there's one more that we're pursuing this year that is new. So typically for students who require what's called adaptive and augmentative communication, or AAC, so that's students that would use something like an iPad to communicate because their verbal communication is not as developed. Typically when students need that evaluation done to see if they're a candidate for AAC, we send that out. So a contractor will come in and evaluate that child, and we will send them to a place that evaluates. Our new SLP, Caitlin Reesberg, who we just hired this year, she is skilled in the area of AAC evaluation, so I spoke with her, and she's interested in becoming our district AAC evaluator. So that hasn't, hit the press yet. We haven't had a student that's come forward with those needs, but that is an area for a modest cost savings. Those individual evaluations can run thousands of dollars, and she's really comfortable with taking on that role. We met with her in our IT department about, the number of iPads we would need, what type of programs we need, and what would she need to get going, and that would represent a cost savings again, because whenever we send out an evaluation, it's typically, multiple thousands of dollars. So I'm really excited that she is taking that on. That's really wonderful to have someone who's skilled in that area, because it's an area of new interest in special education and in speech. So I think that would be one, and the second, would be the clubs that I mentioned earlier, a couple high school folks have reached out to me saying, hey, if I only have 5 students in this club and I were to get my endorsement, could I use this van? And we haven't answered that question yet, but it's definitely something to think about in the cost savings, from.
Yeah, I do have just an update. So all of the vans, they do have their insurance cards in them, and they're covered under the town's current policy.
Oh, they are.
Sarah, just a quick question. When we talk about adaptive communication devices, do we then, we have to supply them through IEPs and 504s, but do we reach out to like Easter Seals and some of the programming that is done? I've seen it in the past, so I'm just wondering if we do that in the future for equipment for our special needs students.
So typically, we send a child out for an evaluation, and the evaluation comes back with, the child requires an ADC device like an iPad or a tablet of some kind. That's something we would purchase. It would follow them throughout their educational career. We do have a couple of devices that are unassigned. They're called model devices. So, Caitlin would need one to do the assessment, one for the child. So we have some in reserve for that purpose. But no, I haven't reached out to any other funding sources. I think the big piece is, what does it look like to get that evaluation up and running in Portland? And then I'm working with our, awesome IT department on the management of iPads if we are to have more and more, because we are, a Chromebook district. Unfortunately, most AAC software only runs on iPads and Apple devices, so we have to look into, a management system for all the iPads in our district. If we need software, if we need a certain app, do we have to pay for it on every iPad, or can we get a district subscription? So things like that we're working on with IT, but Meg, that's a great idea. We can certainly look into other funding mechanisms for that.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm gonna interrupt really quickly. I appreciate this conversation. It's a very valuable conversation. I'm gonna ask that we save any follow-up questions that are not specifically related to transportation for our next meeting, which I believe Sarah will be giving us a full report. So let's keep this conversation transportation related specific to the purchase of the minivan.
I just want to say good job.
That's right. Yeah. Are there any additional questions about the minivan? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the second purchase of the minivan as presented tonight with savings of approximately $122,454 a year, and that we accumulate data this year to be better informed.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Dave, thank you. Is there further discussion? No? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your work on that. Yeah, and that's going to take us right into the next transportation item, which is the hiring of drivers.
Sarah, do you want to brief us on all the work you and Olivia have done to get our drivers on that?
Sure. So we have 3 fabulous drivers right now. We have one who is a full-time driver, so she is driving, when I say full-time, it's 5.25 hours a day, something like that, not truly full-time in the sense of, 6.5 hours a day. So she drives our new van with a break in the middle of the day, so she's doing morning runs, afternoon runs, and then a couple bridge runs in the middle of the day. We also have a half-time driver, and again, not fully half-time, but he is part-time, who is driving the second half of the transition van for those runs. And then we have one substitute driver who works per diem. So we already have our main driver's gonna be out, and we have an individual who thankfully is happy to work on call and come in and sub. So as of now, we haven't had any issues with staffing our vans. We have again a full-time, a half-time, and then a per diem sub, which is really wonderful that we were able to find all those folks so quickly.
Yeah, that is wonderful. And Dr. Britton provided us with the student van driver job description in our folder. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, just that, I can't thank Olivia and Sarah enough for doing this, and we posted out on Indeed, and now we know Indeed works, and we have everything we need. So we just need your, again, I'm sort of asking for forgiveness on the permission, but I didn't feel comfortable doing this to start the school year, and we did that through personnel and Buildings and Grounds Committee. But I would like you to please approve the job description and the hiring of van drivers so that we can staff the transportation runs.
All right. Well, I'll make a motion that we accept the student van driver job description as presented tonight.
And authorize
And
hiring.
authorize the board, the superintendent to hire van drivers.
Is there a second? Seconded by Tim. Any further discussion?
I have one question. Is the
Yeah.
substitute van driver paid on an as-needed basis? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Sarah and Olivia and Charles, for your hard work and creativity and
Bob and Stephanie.
and Bob and Stephanie and everybody who was involved in making this happen. I think that this is a really great step, and hopefully we'll see over the next year or two what kind of savings that represents for us. All right, we're gonna move on, under new business, we have the Portland Association of School Administrators Memorandum of Agreement, which we are going to discuss under executive session, so we'll get back to that. We're gonna move to old business. The first item under old business is the 2024-25 Board of Education goals, which was emailed out, not in your folder. And just as a reminder, this is a little, sort of a new process that we're trying out for our board. We had a self-evaluation that we conducted during our last Board of Education meeting in August, and as a board agreed that we were interested in setting a couple of goals for ourselves as a body, to invest in our own professional development, our own professional growth as board members and as a collective. And so our board laid out 3 goals. The first has to do with professional development, with the goal that every board member will participate in at least one professional learning opportunity during this coming year. The second goal had to do with student voice, with a goal for the board to increase student voice participation and input in our board meetings. And the third goal we established had to do with community relations. And the goal was that the board will explore ways to create more opportunities for community feedback in order to better understand the community concerns and build trust between the board and the community. So these were written out based on our conversation at our last board meeting. If there's feedbacks, edits, changes, we can make those. If not, we need a motion to approve our goals, I guess, as our commitments to work on these over the coming year.
I'll make a motion to approve the goals as written to work on the coming year. I'll second that.
I think I heard Angela. I'm gonna give that one to Angela. Thank you, Sarah and Angela. Is there further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you. I'm looking forward to trying this out with you all, and we'll see how it goes, and we'll be able to evaluate how we do with it in our self-evaluation next year.
Is it on the Board Ed website portion of the school website?
That's a good question. I can talk to Charles about that, about whether there's a spot for that.
That they are posted somewhere so that everybody will see what we're working on as a board.
All right. We can look into that. Oh, and I did mean to just highlight, these are self goals. These are not to be confused with district goals. We know that, and we should, the community understands that. All right, that's great. We're gonna move on to the next item, which is approval of our superintendent's evaluation. And we will discuss that in executive session and take action when we come out of executive session. So we're gonna move on to committee reports. Curriculum is meeting, I believe Tuesday, September 10th. And so we'll get back to you next time. Policy
Is meeting on September 11th, and we have a full plate for policy.
personnel is still
Meeting all the time.
meeting all the time, yeah, and we are in the midst of negotiations with our teachers bargaining unit, and hope to be back
wrapping those up in September. So we'll have more for you next month. Buildings and grounds.
We met twice in August. Those reports are on the Board of Education website under subcommittees, but thanks again to Sarah, Bob, and all of the people who were involved in the van purchase. And that was the first meeting. The second meeting was more about the HVAC and the disappointing news that the funding was not going to be available. Bob is charged with evaluating the air and quality in all of our schools, and so I guess the conversation will continue in another building and grounds committee meeting as to how we're going to achieve that. The plan was to purchase filters in the middle school, high school area, so that that could improve the quality of the air and hopefully get the funding from the state. That is now changed. But I think that conversation about the clean air and the quality will continue in all of our schools as we move forward. And the company was very impressive, located in Fairfield County. He gave us extensive information about how the filters work and what, compared to what we're dealing with here in this building, with humidity and everything, it would have been a dramatic improvement. So fingers crossed. The governor is now looking at 2025 for more funding. I did do a little research, and there are some EPA grants, but we would have to really look at that and see if we're not superseding or, cutting ourselves out of state funding at some point in time.
Will Bob be available to us at a future meeting to kind of speak to how we're going to address these HVAC concerns and the indoor air quality concerns at the middle school and high school if this grant doesn't become available to us in the future?
Yeah, I don't know that I'll have many good answers, aside from hopefully the money becomes available so we can make the upgrades we need.
I just know we've got this deadline coming up from the state about evaluating our air quality, so I guess I'm curious what the plan will be, how we're gonna manage that.
I think Bob, yes, he'd be happy to talk to you about that, but I don't know that he has a lot of good answers aside from we may not be in compliance.
Well, and there's a waiver process as well, but I looked on the Department of Education website, and Bob should come and really talk to us. I mean, there were like 6 different reports that we had to fill out based on this information, and not having the funding available. I mean, there was two rounds of funding, which amounted to probably $300 million. 143 schools were updated. How many schools in the state of Connecticut? There's 3 or 4 in every town, in regional and all the main and prep schools, or all the rest schools. It's the tip of the iceberg. It's not going to make a whole lot of difference. And I looked at the list, and all around us, people got huge amounts of money and updated what we were hoping to update on our buildings. So the other part of it was and the other part of the report from the building and grounds is that, and this is really important because again, we're seeing the deterioration of schools. Gildersleeve and Valley View, as part of his report, we were told that the roofing has to be addressed. There are leaks in Gildersleeve and Valley View, which we know about, but now it's continuing to worsen because the way they put the coating on the roofs years ago was that they laid down rubber sheeting and then held it down with fascia things on the side to hold it down and put rocks on top of it to hold that down. That rubber coating now is probably 50 years, 60 years old. It's shrinking and it's pulling the fascia off of the side of the building, so it's causing water to leak. And we know water never goes straight down when it leaks, it travels everywhere. So he's looking at about $10,000 to repair both of the roofs so that we can prevent the leaks, which just indicates that the plan to consolidate and to build one healthy, safe, leak-free school is becoming more and more compelling all the time. And then he reported on summer work as well for the building and grounds. So it was an extensive meeting and a good report.
We talked a lot.
That's all I have to say.
Are there questions for Meg on that? Or for Dave?
Is that Dave Missile? Missile.
Oh, you missed it while you were traveling. Okay, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
So
News from Pat?
Meeting on the 24th, the 19th, for the first council meeting of the year.
Any updates from the board of selectmen?
The last meeting I didn't attend, but I got the notes from it. The biggest discussion was the new proposal for the water plant infrastructure, which Charles alluded to, which opened up a bigger question of, that's the number 2 thing on the referendum, and 2 things scare me. A, we have to put out the total dollar amount. People don't realize that that's not what it's going to cost us. And number 2, are people going to say, well, geez, I'll spend $6 million for the water, but I'm not going to spend $68 million for the school. And they say, well, let me just do one this year and not both. So I'm nervous that we've got to put together the right informational packets going forward.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to make sure there's accurate information circulating. Committee on Solidarity.
I'm not sure who does that. I know I stepped away.
Well, that's funny. I hadn't even noticed on this that we had taken that off the agenda and added the Youth Services Advisory Committee.
Yeah, I noticed that one.
And I didn't catch that on the agenda, so apologies. That ought to be Youth Services Advisory. Any updates on Youth Services Advisory?
Well, I was liaison, but Meg has joined the committee, so I'm stepping away. We don't need 2 board members on that, frankly, so I think you can.
There's a meeting on the 24th.
Okay.
And they will be participating in open houses at the school and high school.
Equity and Inclusion Coalition.
Eric is working on the new schedule for the year, so we're waiting in anticipation.
Good. All right. Audience of citizens. Do we have anyone online who wishes to address the board? No, it's quiet. All right. Board of Education member comments. And we'll go around as we always do, and please feel free to share anything you wish to share. But in light of our new board goals to participate in professional development and report back our learnings to the board, I just wanted to suggest to folks, board member comment is a great opportunity to do that if and when you're ready. And I know that Angela and Meg and Kim and I were all in attendance at a workshop back at the beginning of August. So if you have anything you wish to share, now's a great chance. Or stay still next time. What?
It was before we set.
It was before we set the goals, but valuable stuff might have come out of it anyway, so it's worth sharing, for sure. Why don't we start over here? Do you want to start tonight?
Excuse me. Well, I would just say congratulations to our teacher of the year and our parent of the year.
Yeah.
I think that was wonderful. I really enjoyed hearing what they had to say, frankly. It was great. And effective.
Great.
I've had a lot of stuff, but basically I went to the State Department of Education, State Board of Education rollout on the guidelines for cell phones, which is interesting. And then I participated in a panel discussion about developing a policy, which I have to say we have directives at the middle school and the high school that was clearly spelled out to parents. Freshman parents got an orientation about the new cell phone directives. Policy will work on that and make sure that we can memorialize the guidelines into good policy. The other thing that summer leadership conference was really amazing. What I loved was the student voice program. We had 2 students from 2 high schools in Connecticut who spoke to us about the importance of listening to and hearing from students. And then I was lucky enough to be invited to participate in a day-long, I think it was really interesting, students participating in a social justice and action speech-making day where they did the research and they actually proposed changes or action items to improve inner city homeless people, finance curriculum in the high school. It was really incredible. There were 12 students and it was a contest. These kids will go on and participate in other areas, but the amount of research that was done was really incredible. So I can only voice as we go forward this year. It's really important to hear from all of our students and student reps, particularly. The burden is on you to make sure that you hear all the voices. That was important and to emphasize that, you know, we don't hear sometimes from kids who are disengaged and who are unmotivated, but if we can hear from everybody, we can work to make sure that everybody's welcome and doing well. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's it. I could go on, but that's it. That's enough.
Dave?
I'm good. I was gonna ask about cell phones too, but you're still my offender, so.
Sarah?
Well, I did get the Cave Journal and read it, and Meg's picture was an even more picture. I was looking for you. I'm sorry. You were and we were well represented. And so it was great to see you meeting with the Secretary of Education, Cardona.
Oh, that's right, too.
So,
I did that too.
That's in there too, if you want to look at the Cave Journals. That was neat to see. Thank you for doing that, Meg. And also congrats to Urban on the start of the school year, and we are hoping that it continues going as well as it has at the beginning.
Angela?
I did attend my first CAVE meeting, and I found it very informative. I feel that I had a better understanding of what CAVE is all about, and I was at least able to network with some of the CAVE members, which I enjoyed. I think I heard a lot of good foundational learning for the role of Board of Ed, which was very informative for me. They specifically talked about how we should have some types of return on investment identified when we set out our budget. So I think that's a really key thing for us to zone in on when we start developing our budgets for next year. And then one of the other statewide discussions that I found very informative was that 119K commission. Yeah. And I had never heard of it before. And at some point in time, I would like to understand how Portland and our community is involved in that, if at all.
What is it?
It's the 119,000 disconnected students.
Oh, is this the Dahlia?
No, it's from, Andrew Ferguson.
Interestingly that you mentioned it, because I just sent Laura and Charles. We can participate in reporting what Portland is doing, particularly in the area of absenteeism, because that's one of the major root causes of these, particularly males between the ages of 14 and 26 are disassociating themselves with school. They're unemployable, and that's the 119,000 individuals that are in school or occupying a place and then, you know, either leaving school or barely graduating and then they're unemployed. So it's a fascinating, but go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't. But I did send that to them today.
And I'd like to congratulate both Delisa and Jenna. And my deepest condolences to Dr. Rosenbaum, his family, friends, and seems like a very monumental person in our community. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet him. And then welcome to all our new hires. I really enjoyed the video that was sent. I watched it much slower.
The slide by slide.
Yeah, they were really quick. Some of them were struggles because it came to it when I first watched it. So thank you for doing that.
That's great. I was also at the summer new board member orientation / leadership conference in August, and there were some really terrific presentations. There was a session about board self-evaluations and superintendent evaluations, which was great because it confirmed for me that most of our process is kind of on par with what best practices are recommended. There was some new learning for me. We're going to talk about this later on when we really need to approve the final document, because that's not something we've had as part of our practice of superintendent evaluations. We go through this extensive process and we produce a document and then it goes in a personnel file, and we haven't had the practice, to my knowledge, of approving that as a board. But they really talked about how important it is as a board to approve this document, that it becomes public, that it is, you know, a public facing document. So that was new learning for me. There was an excellent presentation by the State Department of Ed Commissioner Charlene Russell Tucker. She talked about a lot of things, but specifically one of the things she mentioned was the LEAP program, which is the state learner engagement and attendance program that's addressing chronic absenteeism through home visits. And so it was interesting to learn a little bit more about that. It's not a program that Portland is eligible to participate in, but I know that we have a real emphasis this year on addressing chronic absenteeism. And it'd be good to just tune into what the state's doing that's working, and kind of compare that to what our own strategies are and how they're working for us over time. It was a great session on communications, communication plans as a district. Gave me a few things to think about in terms of how we communicate. I think we have some real strengths with our communication with the district, but I think there's room to grow in how we communicate what happens in our board meetings with the community. So I want to think a little more on that. And then I have just taken some notes from Andrew Ferguson's presentation. He's the CEO of Dalio, and he's co-chairs the 119K commission that Angela had mentioned, that's looking at at-risk and disconnected youth. And one of the things that he talked about that was kind of new for me was the particular vulnerability of ninth graders, looking at ninth grade students and evaluating who is at risk. And one of the things he said that stood out to me was that we should be able to turn to our administrators and have them report out to us, and for them to know, especially in a small district like Portland, in our ninth grade population, which of these 5 or 10 or 15 kids are at risk or are already disconnected. Looking at the that sort of at-risk factors for who would be able to report to us who is on track, who is off track, what's the status of our ninth grade group, because there's something about, what they learned with the research is there's something about that ninth grade year in particular that really can project forward what success or not, or lack of success might look like. So that was interesting to me, and I think maybe there's some learning that can happen for us, if there's some reporting that we could be asking for that might be of value to us. That's all. It was a really great day. It was a very full day. I was exhausted by the end of it, and still had a lot to think about. Tricia was kind enough to print out Meg was kind enough to print out the liaison newsletter, which has lots of webinars coming up with good opportunities for learning, as well as the dates for the Cave and Cats convention in November. And I wanted to say too that there's a legal issues workshop in October that I've attended the last few years, and always find that to be really interesting and gives me a lot to think about. They highlight important legal issues that might impact us as a board. So if you're available, that's always a good one, I think.
I want to add one more thing. I think the speech that you gave at the convocation should be shared with at least board members, if not the public in general, because it really set a tone. It really set a tone. It blew me away when you got up to speak, because it wasn't the usual convocation speech. It was from the heart, and it really was very telling of who you are, and you're the board chair. And I think I'd like for people to see what you said. There may be a recording somewhere, but I'd like to see that speech published somewhere, because it really was very meaningful to me, having been in that seat, waiting for the first day of school, and just recalling some of the things that you said about gratitude and remembering who those kids are. They're somebody's little darlings, somebody's loved ones, and we have to make sure that is front and center when we read our classes for the first time. So I'd like to see that put on the web or someplace.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And also, the beginning of the school year turns me into a really big sack, so I don't know that we need to share that beyond. Anyways, the very last thing, I know we're getting late, and the very last thing I wanted to just raise up for us, last year, this time, we considered whether or not to apply for submit an application for the Cave Board Leadership Award. We did submit it. We were successfully awarded a leadership award.
I think it's a really neat thing. I think it's something our board should pursue every year. It's a reflection, they're looking for demonstration of achievement of particular criteria that they think helps identify an effective board and superintendent partnership. And the areas are board leadership and student achievement, board member professional development, policy, community relations, related to organizational leadership. These are all kind of familiar checkboxes because they're things we look at when we do our self-evaluation process. And I think that these are some real areas of strength for us. So I'm bringing it to you all, offering to pull together the application if it's something you would like to proceed with. But I don't need a motion tonight. I'm just looking for consensus.
When does that have to be in?
The due date, I believe, is the first week in October. So if you're interested in moving forward with it, I would pull together the documents and probably have it ready for the next September meeting.
I would like to see us do it again. There's a plaque that needs more, if we have a space on it, we can get another.
There's a plaque in the Board of Education office that came up out of last year, and there are spots to add on, and it's a demonstration of our commitment to pursue best practices as a board. So, looking for feedback. Yeah, I think so. All right. Then I will pull together documents and have that for your consideration for our next meeting.
And without further ado.
Yes, is there a motion to enter executive session?
Did he add executive session on here?
It is on the second.
It's on the second page, which none of the second page is printed correctly this evening.
I just want to make
Yes.
sure.
Yes, thank you for
Oh, okay.
confirming that. And I have it online here. And the next item is executive session for the purpose of Portland Association of School Administrators Memorandum of Agreement, and we're adding on superintendent of schools evaluation.
That's good work, compliance.
Yeah, compliance.
That's second.
Thank you. For the discussion.
To be invited, Charles.
Oh, and you're inviting them to Britain. Thank you.
We wouldn't want the answer.
All in favor? Aye. All right, motion passes. Thank you, Aaron.